I used to think the golden age of beat-em-ups died in the 90s, buried somewhere between arcade cabinets and Sega Genesis cartridges. But honestly, looking at the ever-expanding indie scene right now, I've never been happier to be wrong. We are living through a massive renaissance of retro gaming, where developers aren't just copying the classics, they're reinventing them with modern design, complex mechanics, and art styles that would have melted a CRT TV back in the day. So if you're ready, here are 13 insanely satisfying indie beat-em-ups lined up for 2026 and beyond. Number 1, Rushing Beat 10. Return of Brawl Brothers, March 19th, 2026. I have to start with this one because it feels like a dream that this franchise is actually coming back. If you grew up with the SNES, you might remember the Rushing Beat trilogy, or as we knew them in the West, Rival Turf, Brawl Brothers, and the Peacekeepers. City Connection is finally bringing the series back on March 19th, 2026, and they aren't just banking on nostalgia, they're taking us back to Neo Cisco to fight the Zika virus, but this time with a roster of 6 playable characters, including the legends Rick Norton and Douglas Build. What has me excited for this return is the new fighting system. The old games were charming, but clunky even for back then. This revival promises a suite of new moves and weapons that modernize the flow while keeping that classic side-scrolling style. It's rare to see a dormant second-rate IP like this get a second chance without being a cheap cash grab, but the footage of the hacker character in the neon streets looks actually completely polished. Two, Mad King Redemption, Q1 2026. This title immediately caught my eye because of its gorgeous 2.5D pixel art style that mixes flat sprites with 3D depth in a way that reminds me of Octopath Traveler, but you know, as a brawler instead of a turn-based RPG. Announced to be released in the first quarter of 2026, Mad King Redemption is trying to solve perhaps the biggest problem with arcade brawlers: replayability. The developers at Secret Mission are blending the traditional gameplay with a roguelite progression system. You are tasked with relieving a king of his madness, which involves beating the sanity back into his corrupted minions. Every run is fresh, offering new combat skills, artifacts, and heroes to unlock. I love the idea of this brotherhood of heroes that you upgrade over time. It adds that Hades-style just one more run addiction loop to a genre that usually ends once the credits roll. Plus, the developers' transparency about fixing movement and hit feedback based on demo reactions gives me a lot of faith that this is going to feel incredibly tight to play. Three, Mexican Ninja, Q1 2026. Sometimes you see a game cover and you just know you're in for a good time. Mexican Ninja is exactly that kind of game. It's fast, chaotic, and it has a distinct attitude and style that feels ripped straight from a 90s comic book. Set in the fictional Nuevo Tokyo, you are fighting against the Narcuzas, which is just a hilarious portmanteau, using a mix of martial arts and what the devs call Mexican jutsus. I'm curious to know if that means we'll be suplexing enemies while throwing shurikens, because that sounds rad as hell. The 2.5D visual style sets itself apart with its depth and color, and the combat emphasizes tight combos and wild spirit powers. It feels like a culturally specific spin on games like Strider or Ninja Gaiden, but with a lot more of that 90s humor. The fact that you fight your way through such a unique setting makes it stand out in a sea of generic cyberpunk brawlers. It's launching in Q1 2026, and I can't wait to give it a try. 4. Underling Uprising 2026. Underling Uprising looks like it's straight from Newgrounds from the 2000s, a la Castle Crashers or Alien Hominid. Developed by Dummy Dojo, the team behind Ninja Chowdown, this game is oozing with personality and cartoonist charm. You play as the colorful, genetically modified experiments trying to get revenge on the evil scientist who created them. What makes this stand out to me is the variety. It's not just punching. There are vehicle sections, weapons, and a combo system that encourages you to bounce enemies around the screen. It supports up to 4 players, which is essential for a game like this because the shared chaos is half the fun. The animations are very charming, squash and stretch techniques make every impact feel cartoony and heavy, and it's all very reminiscent of the style that dominated Newgrounds during its heyday. It was originally aiming for 2024, but with the window shifting to 2026, it looks like they are taking the time to polish those animations to perfection. 5. Acts of Blood 2026. If you have ever watched the movie The Raid and thought, man, I wish I could play this, well then, Acts of Blood is your answer. Coming from an Indonesian developer, XL Team, this game isn't shy about its inspirations. It's brutal, fast-paced, and focuses heavily on visceral, semi-realistic hand-to-hand combat. Set in the dystopian city of Bandung, the atmosphere is gritty and oppressive, a far cry from the colorful cartoons of the previous games on this list. The combat flow shown in the teasers looks like it channels the fluidity of Sleeping Dogs or Sifu, where managing crowds and using the environment is key to survival. The developers started this as a passion project, and seeing it get picked up for Xbox and showcased at Summer Game Fest is a huge win for the Southeast Asian gaming industry. The devs promise a concise, focused experience, about 4 to 5 hours they say, which I prefer over a bloated 20-hour grind. 6. Toxic Crusaders 2026. Toxic Crusaders is based on the underground cult Trauma franchise, more specifically, the Toxic Crusaders 90s cartoons. And looking at it, the inspiration is very clear. You can play as Toxie, No Zone, Junkyard, and the rest of the crew in a 4-player co-op beat-em-up that looks like a lost 90s arcade cabinet. The pixel art is vibrant and toxic, and I mean toxic in the 90s sense of the word, filled with neon greens and radioactive sludge. And it's not taking itself seriously at all, with balls to the wall cartoon gags and goofs. You are fighting the Radiation Rangers and Dr. Kill 'em Off across Tromaville, and the game is packed with cameos and references that only true 90s geeks will understand. RetroWare seems to understand that for a game like this to work, it needs to feel like a party, and everything I've seen so far suggests it's going to be a fun time with your buddies. 7. Button Man 2026. Now, for something completely different. Button Man takes the beat-em-up genre and drops it into a setting we've never seen. Prohibition-era Nova Scotia? You play as Bruce McKenzie, a button man, basically a hitman, for a local bootlegging kingpin. The aesthetic is striking, looking like a moving comic book in the style of 1010, with hand-drawn sprites and a moody noir atmosphere. This isn't just a mindless brawler, there's a mystery to solve. You are trying to find who killed your boss. You explore the town of Kingsport and make choices that affect the story. I love it when brawlers try to add new things on top of the beat-em-up gameplay. It feels more grounded and realistic, like playing through a graphic novel. The combat looks heavy and deliberate, fitting the mafioso vibe of the era. It's a bold stylistic choice that separates it from the cartoon and pixel art styles dominating the rest of the list. 8. Ghost Vanguard 2026. I am a sucker for stylish action, and Ghost Vanguard looks like it's trying to be a 2D Devil May Cry. It's a side-scrolling hack and slash that incorporates roguelike elements, but the focus is on looking cool while slaying everything. You have aerial combos, weapon switching, and a sword spirit system that lets you customize your build mid-run. The developer, Paiming Jin, cites Dragon's Crown and Berserk as inspirations, and you can see it in the dark fantasy art style. The dungeons are gothic and treacherous, filled with traps and massive bosses that require actual strategy to defeat. What excites me most is the build depth, mixing spells with melee combos to create unique fighting styles. Whether you want to juggle enemies in the air forever or freeze them with ice magic and shatter them, the game seems to give you the tools to express yourself through combat. 9. Mech Animals 2026 and beyond. The pitch for this game is Hades meets Mario 3D World, but with mechs. And honestly, they had me at Hades, developed by a team of former feature animation artists who worked on Kung Fu Panda and the Mario movie. Mech Animals looks incredibly polished. You play as cute, tiny animals who pilot large battle mechs to fight an evil corporation. The hop in, hop out mechanic is very reminiscent of Metal Slug to me. You can run around as a tiny critter or jump into a hulking machine, and the gameplay shifts accordingly. It's a roguelite, so are you upgrading your mechs with random weapons and items as you progress? The art style is vibrant and bouncy, clearly benefiting from that animation pedigree. And it supports 4-player co-op and even PvP, which sounds very fun. It's very adorable, and it's releasing in January 2026. 10. City of Rampage, 2026 and beyond. I have been following City of Rampage development for a while, and it looks like an homage to the most punishing brawlers of the 90s. The developer, Zengiz Tazbalatov, explicitly cites Comix Zone and Streets of Rage as inspirations, and the hand-drawn art style reflects the gritty comic book aesthetic perfectly. It's violent and dark, and the music is heavy. But what interests me here is the difficulty. This isn't a button masher. The enemies are tough, and the bosses will wreck you if you don't master the mechanics. It has a weight to it. Every punch feels like it hurts, and you commit to every act. It's one of those games that might fly under the radar for mainstream audiences, but will be beloved by the hardcore and genre veteran crowd who want a challenge. The release date is a bit floaty, but the demo activity suggests it's cooking up nicely for a future release. 11. Pixel Punch, 2026 and beyond. Pixel Punch is a bit of a wild card here, currently in a prototype phase that shows a lot of promise. You play as a down-on-his-luck musician hunting down power runes to get his instruments back from a mysterious villain. It's a classic arcade setup, but the execution has a lot of style. The Eastern European action setting with comic cuteness is a weirdly specific aesthetic that's grown on me. The gameplay is straightforward. Light attacks, heavy attacks, and special moves, but the feedback from the prototype shows the devs are actively listening to the community to refine hitboxes and inputs. It's a passion project that feels personal and scrappy. It reminds me of the early days of indie gaming, where a unique art style and a dedicated developer could turn a simple concept into a cult hit. It's one to watch as it evolves into a full release. 12. Immortal and the Death That Follows, 2026 and beyond. This game has a backstory that's as painful as its gameplay. The developers at Mishura Games have been through litigation, tragedy, and trauma to get this game made, and they are channeling all of that emotion into this kung fu noir masterpiece. Immortal looks incredibly stylish, blending side-scrolling action with dating sim elements. A combination I'm not sure how to feel about, but we'll see when we get our hands on it. You play as Fudo, trying to escape Buddha's prison, and the combat looks fluid and crunchy, inspired by the goats like God Hand and Devil May Cry. There is also the titular Death That Follows mechanic that'll stress you out, a relentless entity that chases you, forcing you to keep moving. The art style is moody and dark, drenched in that noir atmosphere. While the Kickstarter aims for a 2027 release, the demo and early access content will likely keep us in the loop in 2026. It feels like a game with soul, fighting against the odds to exist. 13. Tenjutsu, 2026 and beyond. I saved this one for last because the pedigree it has here is insane. Tenjutsu comes from Deep Night Games, the solo studio of Sebastian Bernard, the lead designer of Dead Cells, which should make you pay attention here. In this game, you play as a renegade yakuza fighting through a sprawling city to take down 4 crime syndicates. The twist is that you can tackle the syndicates in any order, but the longer you leave them, the stronger they become. It adds a tactical layer to the brawling. Do you take out the easy target now, or save them for later and risk them becoming a nightmare? The combat looks fast, fluid, and incredibly responsive, just like Dead Cells. You can reshape the city, unlocking shortcuts and new shops as you progress. It's all really reminiscent of the game Sifu. So if Tenjutsu is half as good as Sifu was, which I highly suspect it is, then we're in for a treat. It doesn't have a firm date, but it's undoubtedly one of the most exciting projects on the horizon. beat 'em up genre isn't just surviving, it's evolving into something bigger, weirder, and way more fun than I remember it being, even during its heyday. From the polished revivals of 90s classics, to roguelites, to even adding elements of dating sims, 2026 is going to be a surprisingly good year for this genre. I should also start budgeting for a new controller, because I got a feeling that I'm gonna wear my buttons down playing these.